Welcome to the MFR Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how you can create a six-figure MFR practice. I'm your host, Heather Hommel. Not only have I been practicing MFR for 11 years, I'm also a life and business coach, especially for MFR therapists. My goal is for you to understand how to get fully booked, how to talk to your clients, and how to make sure they understand what's possible for them with MFR treatment. I'm here to help you stop under-earning, overworking, and burning out. I'll lend support so you can create the MFR practice you've always wanted. Learn how you can do it too, even if you live in a tiny town, and even if you're just starting out, and even if you've ran your practice for years. Let's go. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I have with me Steph Crowder. Steph is a sales and strategy coach who helps entrepreneurs sell with courage, clarity, and confidence. Before building her own business, she served as the director of sales training at Groupon, where she trained sales teams at scale and developed deep expertise in what actually moves people to take action. Today, she brings that expertise into the entrepreneurial world, where she has coached thousands of business owners to land clients faster and build sold-out programs using sales strategies that feel authentic rather than pushy. Steph is also the host of the Courage and Clarity podcast and runs a multiple six-figure business while working less than 20 hours per week and is a mom of two. One of the things I've always appreciated about Steph's approach is how practical and grounded it is. She helps business owners connect the dots between the life they want to live and the revenue their business actually needs to generate. Her program, Year on the Wall, is built around that idea. Instead of vague goals or hustle-driven planning, she helps entrepreneurs reverse engineer the exact revenue roadmap required to create their happiest year, which I love. Steph and I actually crossed paths years ago in a mastermind, so it feels especially fun to reconnect and dive into the work she is doing right now. So Steph, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to see you.
Thank you so much, Heather. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. That was great.
Thanks. I love to do the intros.
Yeah.
Your background is really interesting because you came from leading sales training at Groupon before working with entrepreneurs. What did that experience teach you about selling that most small business owners still get wrong today?
So many things. That period of time was so challenging for so many reasons. Before I became the director of sales training at Groupon, I was a sales rep myself. So I started at Groupon. It was really my first proper big girl job out of college. I was living in Chicago, and that's where that company was headquartered. And this was when, for those of you who know what Groupon was, this was when it was taking off. It was such a big deal. What was the deal of the day going to be? It was really, really exciting. And so my job when I started at that company was setting up deals for the city of Miami, actually. Miami was my territory. And I would have to call companies and cold call. We'd have to make 100 cold calls a day. We were measured on that. And our talk time was measured. It was kind of a grind. I mean, this was the week that I started at Groupon, we were on the cover of Forbes magazine for being the fastest growing company in history. So they didn't even have a spot for us to sit. I was in a concrete bunker. It was crazy and so fun. I was so young and it was great. But, we were just dialing for dollars, as we called it. And I didn't know, I was an English major in college. I didn't know anything about sales. And I would be calling these Miami businesses, basically trying to convince them to put a coupon on the internet. And I had to figure out how to make that appealing. And let me tell you, I was very, very bad at it at first. The story that I always tell is I was this close to being put on a performance plan. And I called, my parents lived in Atlanta at the time. I was in Chicago. I called home and told them I wanted to move home. And my dad was like, you can't do that. You need to figure this out. But I wanted to crawl into a hole. I was so bad at it. I hated it so much. And what's interesting is I became the director of sales training for the entire company. I got to go to Europe to train their people because what we had done in America was so great. That was 4 years later. So how did I go from point A to point B?
How did that happen?
Right? What I really figured out was I learned about what it means to have a sales process. Before I knew what a sales process was, sales felt very, very random. I would walk into work every day with a horrible pit in my stomach, being like, where is my next deal coming from? I have no idea. All I could think about was people hanging up on me, yelling at me. One time somebody told me they would call the police if I called them again. This was all I could fixate on. And so when I started studying old school sales, the 1960s white men, what they would do. And there's actually some incredible concepts from back in the day. And one of them is something called the sales cookbook. I teach this to entrepreneurs now, which is basically very similar to like how you would follow a recipe. When you're making a cake, you can follow a recipe for how to close your sales, but you have to understand the ingredients. What most people do is they start throwing crap in a bowl and then they stick it in the oven and they hope a cake comes out, right? And that's exactly what I was doing. So what I learned was, okay, if I want to reverse engineer, if I want to close a contract a day, which was like roughly my goal, I had to work backwards and be like, okay, one contract, if I want to be getting one contract back every day, I need to be sending two because one of them's not going to come back. Well, how do I send two contracts a day? Well, I need to run 10 appointments because like 8 of them aren't going to want to move forward, but 2 of them will. So I got to do 10 appointments. Well, how do I get 10 appointments? I have to talk to 40 decision makers to set 10 appointments. Okay. Well, how do I talk to 40 decision makers? I have to make 100 cold calls. So then once I understood this, it literally just became a math equation. I could turn my brain off and just not worry about getting hung up on. In fact, the hangups became part of the process. So instead of dreading that, I was able to tell myself, oh, great, I got hung up on. Well, mark it off the list. I'm just one closer to getting what I want for today, which is one deal. So I would start making those 100 cold calls a day. Of course, I also worked on like what was coming out of my mouth and getting better at that. But a lot of it, so much of it was actually this idea of having a cookbook and having a process. And sure enough, once I started doing that, I became a top rep in the company, which is how I ended up becoming a sales trainer and then a sales training director. So to your original question, I know it's a long story, but people always tell me that's an interesting story. And, your original question was like, what did I learn then that really translates to entrepreneurship? I find the same to be true for solopreneurs and service-based businesses where they're approaching their sales so randomly and they really don't understand that there is a method to the madness. Before we started recording, we were talking about how for a lot of us, there's this sensation of up and down sales. It's like some months I'm having a great month and other months I'm having a terrible month. And I don't understand that. It feels so random. It's actually not random at all. And if I were to follow you around for the day in a low sales month, I would be able to see exactly what you're doing or not doing that has put you into that situation. And I don't say that to be judgmental, but I think it's really empowering. We can take back our power as salespeople to be like, oh, if I want a cake to come out of the oven, I need to make sure I'm putting in the right ingredients.
Yeah. I think that's so good. I talk about this to my clients all the time. Like I'm constantly saying, like, give me an evaluation on like every sales conversation you had today.
Yeah.
And I will be able to diagnose exactly what the problem is and give you feedback on it. And there's this hesitancy to want to evaluate yourself. Like they want to evaluate what the client said or did instead of what they said or did.
Yeah.
So it's first like teaching, okay, exactly how to do that evaluation only from what you said or did, not how the client reacted. And like which ones of these conversations closed the deal. Like basically close the deal for us would be they rebooked or they bought a package.
Right.
And they're going to come back for treatment. So I like this idea though, when you go back to that cookbook recipe thing where it sounds like there was a moment in time where you had to decide to grow your capacity to get a no, which was essentially like the hangups. And that kind of became the game of like, okay, well, as long as I'm doing 100 of these, even if 90 of them are hangups, it doesn't reduce my ability to still close the amount of sales that I want to get today or get the content.
Yeah. I would literally keep this bubble. We called them bubble sheets. It would be like a sheet that just had 100 bubbles. I'd print one off every day. And I would have so much fun crossing them off, right? And to your point, that like was just so powerful visually for me. Before the hang up was I internalized that as most of us would, like it felt terrible, but I was able to reframe it as like, oh, okay, well, that person hung up or that person yelled at me, cross off the bubble, we're one closer. And I was able to truly see it as being part of my success. Like you have to go through 99 no's to get a yes. And I was able to see it as a piece of me actually getting where I wanted to go instead of seeing it as like, this isn't working.
Yeah. Why do you think the no is so painful for everybody when they're getting into sales or like they want to avoid sales altogether because they just can't have a no?
What I find is that most people, and this is very human nature, we take it very personally. we take it personally and we take it as a rejection of ourselves. They didn't like me. They didn't like something about like, or for those of us who are solopreneurs, especially, we get so emotionally attached to our work and to our offer. I mean, it kind of feels like it hurts when we take it as, oh, somebody saw what I have to offer and they decided they didn't like it. And we start to spiral on like, well, maybe it's not that good, or maybe it's not that attractive, or maybe it's not that valuable. I see a lot of people leaping to that so quickly. They're like, well, I got to know that must mean that nobody wants what I have. And I almost never tell someone, like any of my clients, that people don't want what you have. What's more likely is they didn't understand. They didn't understand the value of what the thing you're offering is going to bring, practically speaking, into their life. So I think that's the first thing. It's just like that knee jerk, like as human beings, we're so wired to avoid rejection. I think it goes back to like our biology, right? Like rejection used to mean certain death. If you were cast out from your tribe, like you're eaten, right?
Yeah.
So we'll go very far out of our way to avoid rejection. So I think one of the keys is to start separating your personal identity from your sales. Like that's what I had to do back in the day. Somebody hung up on me. They weren't, hanging up me. They were just, busy. Like I was calling restaurants primarily, right? Like they were so busy in Miami. They were so busy. And so if they hung up, even if they yelled at me, I realized it very rarely had anything to do with me and was so much more likely they were doing 17 things at once and they just had to end the conversation. So that I think is key, is like keeping your identity safe while you are putting your offer out there in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Do you have any like tips or tricks for how you go from it being very sensitive for a no to like my identity is protected and like I don't identify with the no?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the first thing is to just really mentally start to separate yourself from your work and what you do. And my favorite thought to have is if it was a no, they didn't understand. Like there's something, instead of it being like a rejection of me and my work and like I'm not good enough, which is how most of us internalize it. It's like I think we have to first understand what sales really is, right? I always see it as like, the scales of justice where like one thing goes up, one thing goes down. Inherently, people's money in their pocket is always going to have more weight. Like right off the bat, the way we're programmed, all of us, is like, keep money in my pocket. Money is safe in pocket. So our task in sales, no matter what you're selling, Groupons or massages, like whatever you're selling, you have to make those scales of justice tip, where this thing that you're offering them has more weight than the money in my pocket, right? So I think when you can see it that way, it really starts to become, notice how that has nothing at all to do with me. If I'm selling you like my sales coaching program, if I'm trying to help you get, booked out, which is what I teach people. Well, I need to help you understand what I do, and the results that I can help you create have more value than the 8K that's sitting in your pocket right now. And how we can actually, in my program, we'll turn 8K into 50K, right? Well, all of a sudden that 8K is like, no problem. So I think if I actually, as a visual person, I know a lot of people are, I like to think about that image of the scales of justice. And it's like, if they're keeping the money in the pocket, I just wasn't able to make the weight of my result that I'm offering. I wasn't able to transfer enough of that weight to make it a no-brainer for them. And that's all.
Yeah. And then you can go back and figure out what went wrong so you can do it better next time. Like it's just a science experiment. It's just information so that it helps you to get better. You don't just decide, oh, they didn't get it, I need to educate them more. You're like, what can I do differently next time?
Right. Or to that point as well, sometimes it's like, oh my God, it was a no. I can never reach out to them again. Like it's a no forever. And it's like, typically, I wish I had this handy, but I was reading some stat about how many sales come from following up. It's like an incredible percentage. Most people do not buy on the first contact. It's like many, many touch points later. But a lot of times what I see, and I, Heather, maybe you see this in your clients too, is like when they hear that no, they're like, but it was a no, but it was a no. And it's like, well, it could be a no for right now. Like when I think about my time at Groupon and how many times I would call the same businesses. And one day they were like, you know what? I'll take the appointment. It's like one day they just were like, I'm in the place where I want to do this. Like things change for people. And it's important to remember that most no's are not forever no's as well.
I like that idea too, because I think that can translate to people listening to this who maybe they had a client come in and they were a no at the end of that appointment for a rebook, but they're still on their email list and they're maybe hesitating emailing them to let them know that they have openings because they're like, well, these clients are just no's, so they're
Yeah.
never coming back. But what if they're not? What if it's
Right.
just a no, not right now, but I got to move into my new house or get my kid into school and then I'm a yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Things change all the time for sure.
Yeah. Okay. One thing I really appreciate about your work is that you talk about building life first, like it's a life first business instead of just chasing revenue. What does that actually look like when someone sits down to like design their year? Something you talk about.
Yes. Yes. I love this question. So what I found was when I would like, especially I think if you identify as like a highly ambitious person, which I feel like a lot of people listening to this podcast probably are very ambitious people who have big goals. If what I would find, especially as like a young mother, when my kids are 10 and 6 now, but especially when they were like a toddler and baby, or even just when I had the one child, it's like you only have so much bandwidth. You only have so much water in your cup. And between pouring into my young family and my business, and then like maybe some, trying to like drink water, get steps, work out, be a daughter, be a friend, it would be time to look at what I want to do. And there would just be, the cup is like bone dry. There's just nothing left. Right. And I would schedule right over things that I wanted to do, or maybe even worse than that would be like family life would be competing with business life. I hated that sensation. I remember one time accidentally scheduling a launch over my kid's spring break and trying to be on calls and be teaching a webinar. And I have like a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I was like, never again. Right. Like I remember thinking this is precious, like family time. We should be on vacation. We should be doing something together. And I'm yelling at everybody because I'm trying to make sales. Like, I don't want to be in this position ever again. So to me, a life first approach is looking at the calendar ahead of time. When I go to plan my year, the very first thing I do because of that experience is my kids are at 2 different schools. I pull up both calendars. We also have a competitive cheerleader. I pull up her travel schedule. I put all that stuff onto my calendar. Heather, you and I talked about how we're going to be going to the same conference in about a month. Like that went onto my calendar before any launches, before any podcasts, before anything related to business, because I find when I don't protect that time, it happened, right? You just will schedule right over it. You'll bulldoze right over it. And it creates so much resentment and it's just not necessary.
Yeah, I agree. And it's so much easier to do your business and be in your business with your clients when, your kids aren't knocking on the door and you don't have that choice. Like you can just be fully there with your family or fully there with your clients. It's a way better thing. I've done that too. And I have kids in college and it's literally just as annoying to have 2 college age boys home wrestling right outside my door. Like, and then being like, Mom, what's for lunch? Because they think it's funny, while I'm trying to do a webinar or whatever. And I'm like, listen, everybody. And then I feel terrible because I'm losing my mind.
Right.
And I'd rather be enjoying them,
Yeah.
But I also really love my business. So
yeah, it's a terrible feeling to feel like you're doing both things poorly. And I just feel like I put myself in that situation so many times that once you start protecting that time, and to your point, like be with your family when it's time to be with your family, be in your business when it's time to be in your business, it's so much better. People will sometimes be hesitant to do this because they're like, I'm afraid I don't have enough time, or like, but I need all the time that I have. I was coaching my clients just the other day about how paradoxically too much time is actually as big of a problem as too little time, right?
Yeah.
And so we always overestimate how much time we actually need to get stuff done. And there's something called Parkinson's law that some listeners may be familiar with. It's the idea that tasks expand to fit the time that you give them. So for example, if I have a podcast to record and I give myself an hour or I give myself a half a day, it will take half a day if I let it be half a day, right? I'll spend the time researching. I'll be working with ChatGPT to come up with the perfect script, like whatever, versus, I only have an hour to do this, so it's going to take an hour. And as somebody who teaches people how to sell and how to do money-making activities and also how to do like launches and scale a company, I have found that whether you give yourself 2 hours or 2 days, you can get the same things done. And actually and I'm sure you have this experience too, Heather, it's incredibly satisfying to watch yourself get more done in less time because I think the thing we all want is to have more time offline. So you have to accept that challenge of like, I'm willing to learn how to do things faster.
Yeah. And willing to map it out on a calendar and say, like, here's what I do on these days and honor it. I think sometimes people think that when you have stuff mapped out, that it creates less or inflexibility, whereas I like to think it actually creates so much more flexibility and you actually get things done instead of waiting till the last minute.
100%. I always say that. That'll be like when I teach my year on the wall, that'll be the number one thing that I'll get pushback from people. They're like, I remember I one time had this commenter who was like, how controlling are you, lady? He called me lady. He was like, you can't predict the future, lady. And it always sticks with me because I was like, that was such a funny comment. But I know that that is a thought that people have is they're like, why plan my time when it's all going to change anyway? Like we're recording this on March 4th. We've had so many snow days. Like everybody's been sick.
Yep.
The point isn't for the plan to go exactly the way that you said it. But to your point, it does create so much more flexibility, I think, because you make decisions ahead of time about what you want to get done. I plan with sticky notes on my calendar. And the whole point of that is the sticky notes is to move them around. It's okay for them to move around. But what most people get wrong when they don't plan is they don't decide ahead of time what matters. So then they're trying to figure out, like you have a crisis, you're in the middle of a crisis and you're trying to figure out what you should be doing at the same time. And it's just like overload for your brain versus I've already decided what matters. Oops, crisis. Okay, well, now I'll just move things around and it's no big deal. But like, I'm always so grateful that I decided ahead of time what actually needs to get done.
Yeah. Also, don't you just love when you've planned like for your own self-care ahead of time or your time off or your vacation or the mastermind trip and you have these things coming up and you can look forward to them?
Yes.
And you're not just wishing you had it. It's like, it's coming. Like,
the
anticipation of it is like kind of fun too, to like romance the idea of like, oh, I've got like a pedicure coming up. I've got a myofascial release treatment coming up. I've got a facial or whatever it is. Or like, I have this whole week off next week. And I'm just like, that's going to be the best.
Yeah, totally. And I think a lot of us, I know I've fallen into this trap where, like I said, you get resentful or you think like, well, that must be, oh, that person's going to get their nails done in the middle of the day. Like that must be nice. Right. As if we don't have any agency or any power to be in control. And it's like, all of us started our businesses. Like I left corporate America so that I could, like, I have caught myself so many times being like, what am I doing? I have free will. I am the CEO. I am the boss. If I don't like how I'm spending my time, that is 100% on me. And I think we lose touch with the fact that you can make that change. Even when you've been telling yourself, well, I couldn't possibly. I think it gives you so much creativity when you just have a blank calendar and you just can think to yourself, like, how do I want to be spending this time? Right.
Yeah. What do I want my experience to be like?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just slows your brain down a little bit to be like, oh, I don't have to see 40 clients a week in order to be successful. Like, I don't even like that. What do I want out of this?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you want to talk a little more about your Year on the Wall program and
totally.
what that is? Yeah.
Yes. So Year on the Wall is this process that I teach, and I've been teaching it every year. I teach it live, typically the first week of December, but it's always available as a replay. So if folks are interested, they can go to yearonthewall.com. And it's a $47 like little class. It's not really a little class, actually. It's like a 2-hour process, but it's really fun. We have these giant calendar pages and I teach you how to put them up on your wall and color code your life essentially with 4 different mini Post-it notes. And part of it is what we've been talking about here, having that life first approach. We do that with an orange Post-it note, actually. But the whole training is really to help entrepreneurs of all kinds kind of like look before they leap, right? And decide what they want their year to look like. You can take it anytime. Like I said, I teach it live in December every year, but I have people take it in March, take it in July, and I revisit it many times throughout the year myself, just to make sure, to your point, like I am choosing what I want my life and business to look like. We spend a lot of time in the training getting super clear on where you actually want to go. I call it finding your North Star and making sure that you are even tracking towards what matters to you versus, I love your example of like 40 clients a week. Like, I think a lot of us fall into just the more is more mentality without pausing to be like, what am I actually doing this for? What does my dream life actually look like? What do I actually want? So in the Year on the Wall training, I teach people how to make space for that and then how to make the plan that gets them there and how to make the money that is going to fund whatever it is that you want your life to look like.
I love that. So actually, like, is this a thing? Like, is there a best time of year to do this planning? Or like you said, you revisit it time and time again.
Yeah.
What's the best time to do it? Is it multiple times a year or?
I genuinely don't think there is a best time. I host it at the beginning of December every year because, of course, we start thinking about the upcoming year. And that's kind of when it's like, to be honest, I teach it then because I feel like it's kind of the trendy,
it's top of mind. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
But like with my clients, we revisit our plans every quarter and we make adjustments. We actually focus on 90-day planning. We have the Year on the Wall for the 12 months, but then we chunk it down into 90-day plans. So I personally think anytime is the best time. Anytime that you want to have clarity around what you're doing, why you're doing it, what you want your life to look like. But certainly I advise revisiting your plan, tweaking your plan, reconciling your plan every quarter.
Yeah. I like that too. And then like for my clients, then it's a little bit easier if you're doing like a 90-day chunk, especially I'm thinking about people in my mastermind, not having to set a goal every month. Like you've already set the goal 90 days in advance for each month, like what your revenue goal is. And so you're just executing instead of having to like reinvent the goal, then get your mindset on board,
Yeah.
So
yeah. I think I'm sure you see this too. A lot of people that I work with, and I certainly has happened to me as well. We fall into planning.
Yes.
And like you make the plan and then you remake the plan and then you make the plan again. And it's like you just keep revising the plan and it's not necessary, right? It's just another way that we're telling ourselves we're making progress and you feel like you did something today, but really you just like tinkered with your plan. So I like, to your point, it's an excellent point, making your plan, telling yourself, I know what I'm doing for the next 90 days. I'm not going to change my plan for the next 90 days. I'm just going to let that be the plan. And then I give myself permission to revise it when we get to the next 90 days.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, let's talk a little bit about revenue. Many entrepreneurs set revenue goals, but they never reverse engineer how they will actually create that money, right?
Yeah.
So when you help someone map their year, what are the key numbers or decisions they need to get clear on first?
Yes. Okay, cool. So, and for folks who really need help with this is heavily covered in Year on the Wall as well, because that is how we come up with the green Post-it notes of how you're going to make your money. We have to understand your individual numbers.
Yeah.
Again, because like after helping so many entrepreneurs, I just see people, I call it the financial treadmill, where you're just trying to make more. And that is just a path to frying your nervous system. You just keep moving the goalpost on yourself and it never feels like enough, right?
Yeah.
I advise coming up with 3 goals for yourself, 3 different financial goals. The first one is called minimum viable income. I call it MVI. And that is where you can think of it as like your rice and beans number, your spaghetti number, meaning you kind of look at like keeping the lights on in your life and your business. You're probably not going to Disney World, you're not going on crazy trips, but like, and I recommend everybody know this number. It's sort of like a worst case scenario number. I like to understand what that number is monthly in terms of like what I need to be paying to my family to, make sure that our lives can just continue like business as usual, status quo. And same thing in business. Like, what are my expenses? Basically just covering all of your life expenses. This sounds so simple, but many, many entrepreneurs do not know what this number is. Yeah. And what ends up happening is I call this like the boogeyman under the bed syndrome, where you just feel like you never have enough money and you feel like something's chasing you. You're like, oh my God, what if I can't pay my bills? Well, you can actually answer that question. You have bills and you have money. Do you have enough? Yes or no?
Yeah.
But most people aren't looking at what that number is.
Or they're too scared to know, even though it's like, obviously you have enough, or you like the lights would be off. You'd be in foreclosure. You'd be getting kicked out. Yeah.
To your point, it's usually good news. People are scared to do it, but it's usually good news. They're like, oh my God, I've been telling myself I need to be making 10K a month, but actually like 2K and we're fine. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's good news. Now, I like people to have this number, not so they can stay there forever, but it's a nervous system regulation goal, essentially. Yeah. So just knowing what that is, so you can tell yourself when you're going for big goals, you're like, well, you know what? As long as I'm covering baseline, I'm okay. It's okay. So minimum viable income is the first one. The second one I call happy number. And this is where you're just adding a little bit of flair, where it's like, okay, now we've got your expenses covered, but it'd be better if we could put some money in savings every month. Or if you have, like for me, I'm doing a lot of home renovations and home projects right now. I would like to be able to be contributing some money to those projects every month, right? So a little bit of breathing room, just kind of adding a little bit more to get your happy number. And then the third number is a stretch number. This one should be, you have no idea how you would hit it. It's just like, it doesn't even make sense financially. It's just like, how would I ever be at that level? And it's just there to push you, right? And to do the identity work of becoming the person who is able to hold a business of that size. Not everybody wants to stretch at that level, and that's totally fine. I always tell people that third one is optional. And in my experience of having done this for the past 10 years, some years are status quo years and some years are stretch years, right?
Yeah.
I'm in a stretch year right now, but I've had many status quo years. So if you're in a stretch year, have a number that scares you, that is going to challenge you to figure out, like, how am I even going to get there? I don't know, but we're going to try and figure that out. So those are three numbers I like my clients to have for themselves.
I love that. I love that. How do you know the difference between needing to be in a status quo year or needing to be in a stretch year? How do you determine that?
It's a really good question. I think it comes, you had mentioned something earlier about capacity. I think it comes down to capacity. I think about my status quo years, and I had my second child in September of 2019. And so, he was 3 months old and we were heading into COVID. Okay. So I went back to work for like 5 seconds and then everything shut down. And I had a 3-year-old and an infant. That was like 2020 was status quo, like the definition of status quo. It was like, let's get through this. Let's
all just try not to die. Yeah.
100%. And let's try not to kill each other in the process. So I think if you're in a status quo, if you're walking through and navigating family crisis, or you're just going through a lot, I think the way that you can figure that out, and this is what I teach in Year on the Wall as well, is I like people to visualize New Year's Eve of this year and ask yourself, what do you want to be able to say, right? Some years you're like, I want to be like, I can't believe I did that. Like, holy crap, I pushed myself and I did it. That's a stretch year. Other years you want to be like, I made it. I'm still standing. And we're all, and so that would be a status quo year where you're like, as long as I put some money in the bank and we're not in foreclosure, we're good. Yeah. That's how you can tell the difference.
I love that so much. Okay. We have so much to talk about and we're kind of running out of time. What do you, okay. So many therapists believe that if they just get better at their craft, this really affects like my people. If they just get better at their craft, at their hands-on skills, the business will take care of itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
In your experience, what is the role that sales skills actually play in creating that sustainable service-based business?
I love this question so much. I talk about this a lot because I help a lot of experts. I help a lot of academic people who are just so freaking good at what they do. I will never forget, I have one client who told me, she's a therapist, like a talk therapist and a relationship therapist. And she told me that one of her mentors literally said, if you're just good at therapy, you should always be booked. I never will forget thinking about that because I just could not disagree more. I could not disagree more. And it sets people up to feel like, well, I must not be very good because I'm not booked.
I got to go take some more training. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, no, absolutely not. That's how you get into like the best kept secret syndrome. That's not what we're trying to do. Right. Yeah. So I think the first thing is people need to recognize that sales skills and your craft are two completely different skill sets. They're just completely different skill sets. Nobody comes out of the womb knowing how to sell, as evidenced by me almost getting fired. Now this is what I do for a living and I've made over $1 million doing it, right? Yeah. But I was almost fired. Like, this is a skill that you can learn like any other skill. People also make the mistake of thinking that selling is about your personality or about introversion, extroversion. It's not. It's just like any other skill that you have to learn. I have seen some of the smartest people and the most expert have no clients And on the flip side, I think we can all think of examples of like people who have no business being booked out, right? Like
Yeah.
if it were true that the cream rises to the top, there would be no scammers. There would be no like fraudulent businesses raking it in. But unfortunately, it's like the person who's going to succeed is the person who sells the best. And so I always tell people selling is just not an optional skill in your business. A lot of people are like, I don't want to have to do it. Well, you're going to have to get on board if you want to be able to serve your clients. You know, you're good at what you do. Sales needs to be seen as another skill that's just like for me, for example, I hate anything having to do with like the financial side of my business. I just dread it. I don't want to look at a P&L, Heather. I don't want to do it. It's like, but I can't just not do it. I have to make myself learn how to do that. I have to stop telling myself that I'm bad at math. I have to stop telling myself that I'm bad at numbers and tell myself this is a skill that I can learn and that I will learn because I'm a CEO, right?
Yeah. You'll at least do it good enough to get the information. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that just I cringe every time Gina makes me do a spreadsheet. I'm like, oh God, don't make me do it, Gina.
I know. Yep. And that's the thing too, is like, it doesn't have to be your favorite. It like doesn't have to be your favorite thing for you to do it well.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's okay. Like you don't have to be an expert in every single thing in order to have a successful business. I also think it's so important to know what your deficits are so you can have the team of people where that is their skill set helping you.
Right.
There's no shame in asking for help. I also just love this thing that you said, the best kept secret syndrome. Mm-hmm. My people have this and it's like a badge of honor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is crushing the ability to make myofascial release mainstream. It's crushing the ability for clients to find them. Like it's crushing the ability to get fully booked and to make the amount of money they want. What would you say to these people that love?
I have a little bit of like a spicy thought on this. It's a little bit, like, woo, but I tell people your silence is selfish. Yeah. Your silence is selfish. And it's a bit of a call out, right? Because if you have a gift and you have something that can help people and change people's lives, which I know your people do, they probably have, I'm willing to bet they have like success story after success story of like, oh my God, this changed my life. If you have something that can make that kind of impact and you choose to keep it to yourself, or you choose to not be highly visible. I mean, I'm like, get out there and annoy people. Be annoying with how loud and proud you are about your ability to change people's lives. I think it's selfish to do anything but. It reminds me of like if somebody were, and this is dramatic, but if somebody were like dying in the street and they're like suffering and you have the medicine in your pocket, you're never going to just walk by that person. You're going to be like, oh my God, I have like shot in the arm. Let me help you. Too many, and especially for your people, like service providers, you all literally have that medicine in your pocket and people are just dying to have that solution. So every time you keep it to yourself, it's somebody who's laying in the ditch. And the reason I say it this way is not to be overly crass or like too much, like too spicy. But I notice that a lot of the people who struggle with this are very altruistic and are very motivated by their helpers and healers. Yes. And so what can help you psychologically, one of the reasons you're not selling is because you're telling yourself you're doing it for you and it feels selfish to sell. So a way that you can switch that is to say, no, it's selfish if I don't sell. It's selfish if I stay small because that's just protecting my safety. I have a gift and it's my job to get out there and give that to other people.
Yeah, that's so good and so true. And people need to hear this. Sales is not selfish.
Yeah, anything but.
Selling is. And I think it's just an invitation to grow your capacity to hear no, because at the end of the day, you're really just afraid to hear no. So you keep yourself small. And this is something that can be expanded upon very rapidly. And I just gave someone a challenge to go and to make 100 offers. And then it was really activating, like to hear no. So I said, now your only task is to get 100 no's.
Right. Yeah.
So, it just changes the mission and it changes the outcome that you're looking for. So instead of the no being the worst thing, it's like actually what you want. And like you said before, it's all a math equation. If you try to get 100 no's, somewhere in there, you're going to get some yeses. And it's also just going to grow that capacity for your nervous system to be able to handle whatever comes its way.
Yeah. And certainly by the end of getting all those no's, you're not going to be so scared of it anymore. You're going to probably be completely desensitized to it. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, this has been just an awesome conversation. I really appreciate the way you break down sales and strategy, breaking it down into something that actually feels clear and doable. And I think so many therapists and service-based business owners start their work because they care, like you said earlier, they care deeply about helping people. And somewhere along the way, they realize that building a sustainable business requires a different set of skills. This is what I want all people to recognize. And what I really love about your work is that you show people how to connect the life they want to live with the revenue their business needs to generate and then actually map out the plan to make that happen. It's
Yeah.
so useful. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your perspective with us today. If people want to learn more about Steph, her podcast, Courage and Clarity, or her Year on the Wall program, or her other programs, we'll make sure all of those links are included in the show notes. And for those of you listening, if this conversation helped you think differently about how you sell your work or plan your business, share this episode with another therapist or business owner who might need to hear it too. Thanks for being here, and we will see you on the next episode. Steph, is there anything you want to add as we wrap up?
No, I just want to say thank you. This was so much fun. Yeah, if people, especially if people want to connect and they're on Instagram, I feel like that's the place I hang out the most. I'm at Hey Steph Crowder. I would love for you to say hi. This has been so fun.
Yeah, great. We'll have to have you back on for a part 2 sometime because I think we have more to talk about.
Sounds delightful. Thank you.
Awesome. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the MFR Coaches Podcast. If you're ready to grow your myofascial release practice, make sure to sign up for my next free training. These live webinars are designed to help you take real steps towards building a fully booked, profitable business. You can save your seat and find the latest dates at themfrcoach.com/webinar. And if you're looking for more support, the Foundations program is now open year-round. Inside, you'll get coaching, tools, and community to help you get fully booked and stay that way without burning out. One last thing before you go. My brand new book, Your MFR Practice Starts Here, is now available. It's a must-read for any MFR therapist who wants to build a business that actually works. You can grab your copy on Amazon and get your companion guide by going to themfrcoach.com/book. Start implementing right away. I'll see you in the next episode.